Hello, and thank you for once again tuning in to Alpha News. Today, we're very fortunate to be joined in studio by Michele Lentz of the Child Protection League. We've had Michele with us in the past, about a year ago, to talk about how Minnesota seems to not want to put pedophiles in prison. And unfortunately, this is a problem we still have in the state. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Right off the top, for some of our viewers who might not be aware, tell us a little bit about your work at the Child Protection League.
Sure. The Child Protection League is a nonprofit organization that works primarily in education policy, but our mission is to protect children from indoctrination, exploitation, and violence. And so we do that in a number of ways, but most of our work is out with the public. So we monitor what is going on in the legislature, in school policy, in the culture, and we inform and equip parents to be able to take a stand, protect their children, and know what's going on.
Seems like a multi-pronged battle. You've got problems in the schools, those are abundant. You've got problems in the legal system. What are you most interested in right now?
We're working on a couple of things, but a big priority for us this year is some legislation that we call the Protect Minnesota Kids Act. And this has to do with Minnesota. I mean, the problem, first off the bat, is that Minnesota is the worst state when it comes to taking convicted felons, convicted of the possession, trading, creation of child sexual abuse imagery off the street. Right now in the state of Minnesota, 87 to 91% of them just get probation.
Wow.
So it depends on which crime that is. Obviously, possession of child pornography, or a better term for it is child sexual abuse imagery. Right. Possession of that kind of imagery is the lesser crime. Distribution or the trading, uploading and downloading of it is a more serious crime, and then obviously the production of child pornography is the most serious crime. But in all three categories, 87 to 91% of those who are convicted, I mean, how many are they even catching?
Right.
But of those who are convicted get probation in the state
Lord
of
knows
Minnesota.
in Minnesota, we're just not charging people with crimes. I mean, it happens in every other area of law where someone gets picked up for a crime and the prosecutor just doesn't bring any charges. So that could be happening here also.
Yeah, Minnesota is very nearly becoming a sanctuary state for child predators.
Wow.
I mean, what an accomplishment, you know, to be known for that. But we're 49th or 50th in the country, so we're in really bad shape. And I think it's important that we clarify what we're talking about here as well, because we're not talking about pictures of naked kids running across the grass. Right. We are talking about pictures and videos of the rape and torture, humiliation of children, babies to teenagers.
Yeah.
Every one of these images, and the law enforcement and the state admit that those who are convicted of these kinds of things, we're not talking a few images. They have hundreds or thousands of these images and videos on their devices.
Right.
Every single image is a crime scene. Right. Every one of them. And every child involved in that has been sexually assaulted.
What's the logic in letting them go? I mean, I can understand why some kid that gets caught with a small amount of marijuana should be turned free, but how are they justifying turning 9 out of 10 people with child rape material on their computers free back into the public?
There is a mentality out there that is shifting the sympathy more towards the predator than to the victim. And we need to shift our sympathies back to the victims. Right. In this case. I think there's also an attitude of that is just against incarceration. There's a number of leaders in our state, unfortunately, they just don't like incarceration.
Well, you were telling me earlier that the state is actively involved in measures to reduce the capacity of our prisons. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that is a new issue that has just come up. The Minnesota Sentencing Guidelines Commission, so in the state of Minnesota, the legislature around 1980 or so, created the Minnesota Sentencing Guidelines Commission.
Okay.
The commission is supposed to take some of the burden off of the legislature and have consistency and maybe best practices or whatever regarding the sentencing of convicted criminals. And so the courts now have also said that the directives that are put out by the commission, they must follow. So the courts are saying nope, we have to do what they say. The legislature is saying, here's our intent in the law, and the commission is supposed to take their intent and implement it. So they have just announced recently that they are proposing a change, and the period for public comment is, I believe, open now.
How can people make a public comment?
They would have to go to the Minnesota Sentencing Guidelines Commission page on the Secretary of State, I believe, website.
Okay.
Go to childprotectionleague.com. At least in the next few days, we will have information about this.
Gotcha.
Up on our website, and sign up for our email updates, because we'll send people an email here in the next day or two, letting them know how to register their comments.
Yeah.
The public comment hearing is on the 16th of December, and what they are proposing is the removal of basically the principle that says, if somebody is convicted of a felony, anything, not just child sexual abuse or anything like that, any felony, and while on probation is convicted of another felony, they will no longer consider the first felony in issuing a harsher sentence.
Right.
So if, now I heard that the commission has removed their last meeting from their website, but at their last meeting, one of the commission members said, do we think that the public has an appetite for reducing prison beds by 500? And so that's their goal, is to reduce, not reduce crime, but to reduce the amount of people who are in prison by, I guess, don't let them go into prison at all, just put them on probation. And so the effect of it is that more of these convicted criminals will just get probation and no prison sentence, which is exactly what's happening with these crimes of child sexual abuse imagery.
So we're reducing the capacity of our police in major urban centers. We are letting a lot of people who collect child abuse imagery go free without any prison time. We're reducing the capacity of our prisons, and this commission is openly talking about, does the public have the appetite for this? Do you think the public has the appetite for this? Because I don't. When I talk to our viewers and when I talk to people in Minneapolis, they're terrified. I mean, there's gunshots every night. The city's falling apart. The state's falling apart. It doesn't seem like the public should have the appetite for this. No,
and the people of Minnesota need to rise up and demand that. I mean, the Sentencing Guidelines Commission, they've lost their minds, or they are becoming a real danger to public safety in Minnesota with these kinds of policies. And apparently, this isn't all that new. I know that there was a piece of legislation in 2017 to take some power away from them, give it back to the legislature. But in addition to weighing in and making public comment on this proposed policy change, I think that people need to reach out to the Senate Judiciary Committee and the House Public Safety Committee and start demanding that they rein these people in, because this is just out of control. Not only do the people of Minnesota not have an appetite, the people of Minnesota are a resounding no.
Yeah, right.
That we'll never have an appetite for putting these people back on this, not putting them back on the street, but not putting them in prison in the first place.
Right. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's almost like you should give them just punch cards and, fifth crime is free. Because if the harshness of the penalty is reduced upon the second commission of the crime, why would you even try to stop committing crimes? Especially if you're somebody's like a child porn addict where it's an addiction, you're compelled to keep committing the crime. You need some pretty harsh penalties to break that cycle.
That's right. There is a school of thought out there that when it comes to those who are convicted of child sexual abuse, imagery, possession, trading, production, that there's a low recidivism rate in that population. And that is completely false. Matt Grossel, the state representative who is introducing legislation to raise Minnesota's standards up to the federal level, which would solve this problem,
There we go.
said that the one study that said the recidivism rate was low acknowledged that they could only go by those who they had caught.
Yeah, right. They're not ceasing to reoffend. They're getting better at not getting caught because they learned from their mistakes.
Yeah. Now, the Child Protection League has been working with a therapist, an extraordinary man from the East Coast named John Euler. John has this accolade. He has logged more clinical hours working with sex offenders than anybody else in the United States or Canada.
I don't know how he has the stomach for it.
Yeah, in about the last 25 years. So obviously he has a ton of data. These people are convicted, and I asked him, John, what of all the people that you've worked with, that you've treated, assessed, have you seen even one pedophile, one person who was addicted to child pornography ever be rehabilitated?
Right.
And he said no.
Wow.
He hasn't seen any. He said 100% of these people who are offending children, who are committing these acts against children, they 100%, they are all addicted to child rape videos. So you can't separate criminal sexual conduct with a child, so the molestation, rape of a child, you cannot separate that from the addiction to child pornography.
And I would imagine that if we clamp down on child pornography, it might also limit the amount of active child molestation we have, because it seems intuitive that if you have one of these pedophiles, these broken people, allowing them easy access to child porn probably pours gasoline on that flame and makes it more likely that they'll go out and molest a child. I don't have a study to back it up, but it seems intuitively true.
Yeah, it's logical, and I believe that there's plenty of evidence to back that up. The state of Minnesota, because they presume probation when a person is convicted of these child sexual abuse crimes, that the majority of them get out on probation. It's just presumed that will happen. And Representative Grossel has 3 times now introduced legislation that will raise Minnesota standards up to the federal level.
So just up to normal, like up to the standard.
Up to the standard that the federal government uses. So in other words, if you are convicted of trading in child pornography, and the federal government charges you, and you get a 10-year sentence, you're going to do a 10-year sentence.
Right.
If the state of Minnesota charges you and convicts you, you're going to get probation. The video that we are in the process of making, that we will be releasing in January, tells the story of a number of cases where this has proven to be true.
Right.
One story is of a mom in northern Minnesota whose middle school daughter was groomed by the middle school assistant principal.
Jesus.
He was caught with child sexual abuse imagery on his devices, and they discovered when they caught him that he had been grooming a number of children. He had 55 fake profiles on social media, but there was a few children who were at the school that he was particularly grooming, softening them, breaking down their defenses, and they had all kinds of text messages. He pretended to be a boy from Duluth, and started sending this young girl, 12 years old, text messages, and then he would talk to her about the text messages this young boy sent, right?
Yeah.
Asking for pictures and things like that. And so when he got busted, they told the mom that it's your daughter's assistant principal who's been doing this, and they also told her that he would probably just get probation because he hadn't assaulted her yet. Now I guarantee
he
you,
would have if he was successful, though.
not only that, the psychological damage he did to her.
Yeah.
You know, in the video, the mom will talk about how her daughter is not the same anymore.
Yeah.
She went from, you know, valedictorian, class president to alternative learning center, doing school online, struggling, doesn't trust anyone anymore.
And the state's message is that that's okay. You don't deserve to go to prison for that.
Right. The state would have just given him probation. The feds stepped in.
Good.
And they charged him, and I think he got over 50 years.
What determines if the feds step in or not?
It could be if it interstate commerce, if it crosses state lines. There could be other factors where the state might step in. I really don't know that criteria.
Okay.
But the state of Minnesota, you know, it's everyone's worst nightmare, I guess, if it's going to be handled at the state level.
Yeah.
So there's that story, and then there's the story of Jacob Kinn, who, this was all over the news 2016, 2017, because he had killed this woman, burned down her trailer home, kidnapped the 5-year-old girl that she was babysitting, and sexually assaulted that child. And he had been convicted of possession of child pornogaphy 3 years earlier. And he was on probation. And while on probation, he committed another crime. They caught him. Yep. The county did not charge him with that crime, let him go. And then he committed murder and rape. And then, of course, you know, he got 26 years, but I don't know what it was. I mean, he had a murder charge at that point.
But, you know, why does the state let it get to the point where there's a murder charge? It's not like this guy came out of nowhere. And you see that with every crime. You know, I do a lot of crime reporting in Minneapolis. And it seems like everyone has a rap sheet as long as their arm, is out on probation, is out on bail that was paid by some, you know, national advocacy group. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. These people are known to this day. I want to pick your brain on an idea here. I'm pretty tuned into these left-wing circles, and the cutting edge of leftist thought right now is basically normalizing pedophilia. They're calling pedophiles minor attracted persons, and there's whole institutes, and there's actually professors at universities that write these scholarly papers on how we need to view these minor attracted persons as sick individuals, or maybe pedophilia is a sexuality, and we need to counsel them and come up with strategies to help them avoid offending. What do you make of that? What do you make of the new way that we're regarding these people?
Well, I guess you can't. I mean, you can't sink much lower than you know where we've sunk as a culture, and yet we can look and see what's coming next. For instance, another thing that John Euler said to my organization was that before an offender gets involved in child rape videos, 100% of them have already gone through the whole bestiality, you know, disgusting world. And so by the time they have gotten to the point where they are watching child rape videos, they have no conscience, they have no remorse, and they have no empathy. They're psychopaths, he said at that point. And so why is our culture, is the left trying to soften this? I think, you know, one might be because it's going to start coming out just how prevalent it is, and how much Hollywood is involved, how much people in big business, people in government, heads of state, monarchies. I mean, it could be just a coincidence that this is all happening at the same time that the Ghislaine Maxwell trial is coming out. There's a lot of big names associated with that could very well come out. You look at the the number of sting operations that we kind of follow this as much as we can, but it's amazing how much that has improved in the last 4 years. How much they have gone after and broken up these pedophile rings. And so I think you're probably talking about the elephant in the room, you know, to some extent, but there is clearly an attempt to sort of soften the consciousness of the American people that this is just, you know, another sexual orientation. But if you talk to the experts like John Euler, who work with convicted sexual offenders and who work with victims and survivors, he'll tell you a different story.
And I've heard that before. I've heard that a lot of this is the consequence of extreme pornography addiction. And a lot of these people, they've become perverted because of this addiction to this material. And, you know, with any addiction, you seek out more and more extreme versions. With drugs, you overdose and you die. With pornography, you need to find something that's continually more edgy, which brings you to bestiality, or I guess in some extreme cases, child pornography. So it's not a sexuality that you're born with. It's something that you fell into because we live in such a porn and sexuality-soaked society. And it seems like you're suggesting, and I think I agree with you, that if we would sort of clean up the public morals a little bit and not have, you know, a media, a Hollywood, you know, an entertainment complex that's so enwrapped in this nonsense, then maybe we'd have fewer people getting sick and falling into these horrible addictions.
True. I think if there are people out there, if there are legislators out there who maybe get campaign donations from organizations that are sympathetic to the broad spectrum of sexual orientation, or to organizations, let's say like Planned Parenthood, who certainly would benefit from a sexualized culture, because a sexualized culture is going to result in unwanted pregnancies that they have a ready answer for, right, with abortion. If a legislator is getting campaign donations from these organizations and they have a certain sympathy to those causes, I think at some point we have to stop and say, at what point are we going to start protecting children?
Isn't it so crazy, though, how if you talk about this stuff, you're labeled a right-wing conspiracy theorist? Because I noticed that, you know, if you go on, like we're going to do, on YouTube, Facebook, all these platforms, and you have this conversation, they'll demonetize it, they'll ban the content, they'll suspend you, not because you're saying the word child pornography, but because you're accusing people in high positions of being sympathetic to this sort of stuff. It's shocking.
Yeah.
Do you face that at the Child Protection League? Do people, you know, criticize your mission?
Yeah, they do. And MailChimp just suspended our account because we put out an email questioning. We had questions about a certain injection that they were promoting to children.
Yeah.
And they so they suspended our account. They've reinstated it now, but that is, you know, getting suppressed and shadow banned, and it's the nature of the cancel culture that we try to operate. But the truth can handle a few questions, I heard somebody say recently. And so if people want to call me, you know, a right-wing person for protecting children, then go ahead and call me it, because I know that the majority of people who are out there who I am talking to, they don't want their kids hurt. They don't want their kids molested by the church staffer, the school coach, the Boy Scout leader, the neighbor, and that's what we're talking about. These predators are not your image of, you know, a slime ball at the park offering a kid candy to get in the car. Okay, we are way past that now.
Right.
These people are sophisticated. They know what they're doing. They know how to gain the confidence of the people around them. On the outward appearance, they live successful, normal lives. And usually when they are busted for crimes against children or possession of child sexual abuse imagery, their circle is shocked.
Right.
Okay?
Right. I'm sure the digital environment makes that even easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are masters of deceit. They're world-class liars. And so that's what we're dealing with. And so not only do parents have to be aware of what's going on, but apparently the parents have to show up now and start demanding that the legislature take action and pass Matt Grossel's bills.
And how should they do that? What specifically, if people are fired up watching the interview, I'm fired up conducting the interview, who should people be contacting? Where should they be going to make their voice heard?
Yep. First, go to the childprotectionleague.com and just scroll down the home page, or in the search bar type in Protect Minnesota Kids Act. But if you just scroll down the home page, about halfway down, you'll see links to the Protect Minnesota Kids Act. That has a petition, it's got a fact sheet, it's got the legislation, it's got who to contact. I mean, it's got everything that you need. And we will even provide people with palm cards, that are yay big, that are just easy to carry, that give just the bullet points of what this issue is about. Because we need that army of parents rising up. I heard this organization not too long ago. It was a Democrat organization. They were talking about how they're in trouble because they have failed to win over the parents, right? And the parents are showing up, and this is a problem for them. Well, yeah, the parents are showing up, and we're coming. Yeah. And we're bringing the parents, and we're bringing them to the legislature to now compel them to take some significant action. Good. So House File 226 and 229 are there. So we're in the middle of a biennium, right, at the legislature. So they were introduced in 21. They'll still be alive in 22. For some reason, they haven't gotten a hearing.
Why not?
You would think, at least in the Senate, and Republicans and Democrats are both to blame for this.
Right.
That they are not making this a priority, and they won't make it a priority until the parents demand that they do it, unfortunately. So 226 requires that somebody who is convicted of these crimes register as a sex offender. That person,
not required to right now?
Nope. That person in northern Minnesota, Jacob Kinn, who killed that woman, burned down her trailer home. When he was convicted of child pornography possession 3 years earlier, he didn't have to register as a sex offender. When they discovered that house burned down and a dead woman inside, there was no child there. It wasn't until that child's mom showed up 8 hours later that they discovered that they had probably a predator and a missing child. Jacob Kinn was nowhere on the list, because where do they look first? They looked at the child sex offenders in the community.
The obvious question here is, why are people that are getting busted with child porn not required to go on the list? How do they even justify that?
I don't know.
It's unclear.
Yeah, but it's not acceptable.
Right.
And so that bill would require them to register as a sex offender, and then House File 229 will raise Minnesota standards up to the federal level, which is an easy fix, and it solves a lot of this problem. And it's interesting that the Democrats and maybe some Republicans, I don't know, but what Matt Grossel said, some of the pushback he was getting was, you'll laugh at this, Kyle, that the bill was too expensive. That
I am laughing at that.
Okay,
yeah.
that because they scored it, and it was going to create so many new need for new hospital beds. $6 million. $6
million.
$6 million.
That's nothing.
Wasn't there a bike path?
Yeah.
I know there was a morgue. There was a morgue
that was never used.
That was never used. That cost $6 million.
I don't think we're allowed to say why, but I'll put the link in the description for this video, and you can see why that morgue was never used. Yeah, right. there are rest stops in Minnesota that cost millions of dollars. The Center of the American Experiment puts out this list of things, and the state blows $6 million overnight. Yeah. That's nothing. Yeah.
So I think it gets back to that they just don't like incarceration.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
even of the most violent people, the most vile people in society.
If we remember what John Euler said, that he, in 25 years, has not seen any of these people
Right.
get rehabilitated. We're putting kids in danger.
Yeah, there's really only one option to deal with these people, and it's not turning them loose and letting them do it again.
Yeah.
That's really shocking. So we've covered a lot of ground. We've covered this huge problem that most people are not aware of. We've covered who people should contact. We've covered how they can get in touch with your organization, what they can do next. Is there any sort of overarching message that you'd like to leave our audience with?
So I think stay in touch with us at the Child Protection League, because we will be releasing the video in January, live streaming it, I think, on our launch night. And then go to the website to get the information that you need to be able to articulate, and then just tell legislators what you think. And then the bottom line is, until the penalties for possession, distribution, production of child sexual abuse imagery, until the penalties for that crime are the equal to the penalties for child rape, then child rape is going to continue in order to make those images and those videos. And so we have to start calling this what it is, the sexual assault of children. Stop tinkering around the edges and get meaningful change in legislation. And then I think the last thing is maybe this Sentencing Guidelines Commission needs to be reined in.
Yeah, for a whole variety of reasons, not just the child issue. But it's a pretty simple message, and one that I think we can all get behind. Pedophiles should be in jail, and children should be safe.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Kyle.